My girlfriend said, "You're just not enough for me anymore." I smiled and said nothing, just quietly packed my things that night. 2 weeks later, when she called me crying, the truth waiting behind my door left her completely broken. "You're just not enough for me anymore." She said it the way someone reads a grocery list. Flat. Certain. Like she had rehearsed it in the mirror that morning and decided it sounded right. I didn't flinch. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't ask her what she meant, or beg her to explain, or reach for her hand across the kitchen table the way I might have done a year ago. I just looked at her for a long moment. And then I smiled. Not a cruel smile. Not a broken one either. Just quiet. Still. The kind of smile that lives on the other side of something you've known was coming for a long, long time. She blinked. I think she expected tears. Or an argument. Or at the very least, some desperation she could point to later when she told her friends the story. What she got instead was silence. And that silence, I think, frightened her more than anything I could have said. Hey viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. We had been together for 3 years, 26 and 24, living in her apartment in the city, the kind of city that smells like ambition and old coffee and someone else's money. I had moved in with her 8 months ago. That had been her idea, back when she still thought I was enough. Her name was Brooke, and I want to be honest here. The way you can only be honest about someone once you're far enough away from them that the love has cooled into something more like clarity. Brooke was stunning. The kind of woman who walked into a room and rearranged it just by being there. Sharp sense of humor. Quick with a compliment. Quicker with a critique. She worked in marketing for a mid-sized tech company, surrounded every day by people who moved fast and spent money like it was air. And I think that world got inside her head in a way neither of us noticed until it was too late. I was a freelance developer. Not flashy. Not loud. I worked from home, usually in old sweatpants and a coffee-stained t-shirt, on projects that were genuinely good, but that I couldn't exactly brag about at dinner parties. I paid my half of everything. Every month. On time. I cooked most nights. I remembered things. The date she had her dentist appointment. The name of the co-worker who kept undermining her in meetings. The exact way she liked her tea on hard mornings, strong and sweet, with the bag left in for exactly 4 minutes. I was, by any reasonable measure, a solid partner. But somewhere along the way, solid stopped being enough for Brooke. The cracks had been showing for months. I knew it. I just kept choosing not to look directly at them. The way you avoid looking at a flickering light because you know the moment you acknowledge it, you'll have to deal with it. She started coming home later. Not every night, but often enough that I noticed. She started talking about her colleague, a guy named Theron, with a frequency that made something quiet shift in my chest. Theron this, Theron that. Theron got promoted. Theron just bought a place downtown. Theron took the whole team out for drinks and picked up the entire tab without blinking. She never said anything direct. She didn't need to. The comparison was always there, living in the space between what she said and what she meant. I absorbed it each time without comment. I'm not built for arguments that don't have a point. And the point of those conversations was never really about Theron. It was about me. What I wasn't. What I hadn't yet become. 3 weeks before the night she said those words to me, we had gone to a birthday dinner for her friend Cassidy. It was at one of those restaurants where the menu has no prices and the portions are art installations. Everyone at the table was in finance or consulting or some version of I work in the industry. I sat next to Brooke and smiled at the right moments and laughed genuinely at a few things, because I'm not someone who performs discomfort. But I noticed how Brooke laughed a little too loudly at other people's jokes that night. How she leaned slightly away from me at the table. How, when someone asked what I did, she answered before I could. He does freelance software stuff, she said. Not wrong, but flattened. Like she was embarrassed by the shape of my life. I didn't say anything in the car on the way home. She filled the silence with observations about the food and who was wearing what. And I sat in the passenger seat and felt something inside me make a decision. Not a dramatic one. Not an angry one. Just a quiet one. The kind that settles somewhere low in your gut and doesn't move again. 2 weeks after that dinner, and 1 week before the night it all ended, I got a call. I was in the middle of a project, headphones in, coffee going cold beside the laptop. The call was from a man named Clifford. He was a partner at a venture-backed software firm I had been in quiet conversations with for several months. I had built something. Not a side project. Not a hobby. Something real. A tool for enterprise data integration that solved a problem every mid to large company had been patching over with expensive, clunky workarounds for years. I had been working on it for over 2 years. Mostly alone. Mostly at night, after Brooke fell asleep, in the pale blue light of my second monitor. I hadn't told her much about it. Not because I was hiding it, but because she had stopped asking about my work a long time ago. Clifford told me the firm wanted to move forward. They wanted to acquire the tool and attach me to the product team as a senior technical architect. The number he said, the acquisition figure, was not a life-changing amount for a venture firm. For me, it was the kind of number that rearranged every assumption I had quietly accepted about my own future. I sat very still after the call ended. Then I finished my coffee. Then I went back to work. I didn't tell Brooke that night, or the next night. I was waiting for the paperwork to be finalized. I'm not someone who announces things before they're real. And honestly, something else was happening inside me that week. Something I didn't fully understand yet. A slow pulling away, like the tide going out. Quiet and inevitable and not asking permission. The night she said it, we were standing in the kitchen after dinner. I had cooked chicken with a lemon herb sauce, roasted potatoes, salad with that dressing she always pretended to be indifferent about, but ate every drop of. She had been quiet through most of the meal. Not the comfortable kind of quiet. The loaded kind. The kind where someone is building towards something, and you can feel it in the air the way you feel a storm before it breaks. I cleared the plates. She sat at the table with her wine and watched me. And then she said it. You're just not enough for me anymore. I put the plate in the sink. I turned to face her. And I smiled. That quiet, still smile I mentioned. She blinked. Did you hear me? She said. I heard you, I said. She shifted in her chair. I've been trying to figure out how to say this for a while, she said. I know, I said. Another blink. She hadn't expected that either. I just feel like we're going in different directions, she said. You want more? I said. Not a question. I want someone who's. She paused. More driven. More ambitious. Someone who's actually going somewhere. I nodded slowly. Okay, I said. She waited. For what? I'm still not entirely sure. That's it, she said. That's it, I said. You're not going to say anything? I looked at her for a long moment. I thought about the phone call from Clifford. I thought about the paperwork sitting in my email inbox. I thought about the 2 years of late nights and cold coffee and the thing I had built while she slept. And I chose not to say a word about any of it. Not out of cruelty. Out of something else. A kind of dignity, maybe. A refusal to defend my worth to someone who had already made up their mind. No, I said. I'm not. She didn't sleep at the apartment that night. She texted Cassidy and left within the hour, bag already half-packed like she had anticipated this going a certain way. I waited until the door clicked shut. Then I stood in the kitchen for a few minutes, very still, listening to the apartment breathe. And then I started packing. Not everything. Just what was mine. It was less than I expected. 3 years, and my life fit into 4 boxes and a duffel bag. There's something clarifying about that. Something almost clean. I worked methodically. Books. Laptop. The small framed photo from my shelf. The one of the coastline from a trip I had taken before I met Brooke. My spare hard drives. The coffee grinder she always complained was too loud. By 1 in the morning, I had everything loaded into my car. I left my key on the kitchen counter. No note. Nothing dramatic. Just the key, catching the light. I had been thinking about the apartment for 2 weeks by then. I just hadn't signed the lease yet because I was waiting to see how things went. I had toured it on a Thursday afternoon, telling Brooke I had a meeting with a client. It was 3 floors up in a building that had been recently renovated, 10 minutes from the firm where I'd be starting. Big windows. Hardwood floors. A second bedroom I could use as a real office instead of a corner of someone else's living room. I signed the lease the morning after the kitchen conversation. Moved in that same day with my boxes and my duffel bag and the coffee grinder. By the time the sun set that evening, I was sitting on the floor of my new apartment eating takeout from a Thai place down the street, laptop open, finalizing the last of the acquisition paperwork. I felt something I hadn't felt in longer than I could clearly remember. Still. Not numb. Not sad. Just still. Like a compass needle that had finally stopped spinning and was pointing somewhere true. The following week, I started at the firm. Clifford introduced me to the team on Monday morning. The product team. The engineering leads. The 2 other architects I'd be working alongside. It was the kind of room I'd spent years building toward without fully letting myself believe I'd ever end up in. I was good at the work. I had always known that, quietly, without needing anyone to confirm it. But there is a particular feeling that comes from being in a room full of people who see it too. who speak your language and push back in ways that make you sharper and ask questions that nobody had ever thought to ask before. I stayed late every night that first week. Not because I had to, because I wanted to. I ordered dinner to the office twice. I started sleeping better than I had in months. On Friday night, I set up my apartment properly, put up the coastline photo, arranged the bookshelves, put the coffee grinder on the counter right next to the machine, loud and unapologetic. Made myself coffee at 11 p.m. just because I could. Sat by the big window with my mug and looked out at the city lights. And for the first time in a very long time, the city looked like something that belonged to me too. Brooke texted once during that first week. It was short. I hope you're doing okay. I read it. Didn't respond. Not out of anger. I just didn't have anything to say that would have been kind and honest at the same time. The second week passed with no contact. I was busy, not performing busyness. Actually deep in something that was pulling all of my attention and most of my better energy. There was a woman on the product team. Her name was Rin. She had sharp eyes and the kind of laugh that came out of nowhere and rearranged the whole room. We started getting coffee after the late evenings, talking about the project, then about other things. Books. The way certain problems look completely different when you flip your assumptions. The best noodle spots within walking distance of the office. It wasn't romantic. Not yet. But it was real in a way that made everything else feel slightly more real by proximity. She knew about my acquisition. She knew about my tool. And she talked about it the way someone talks about a thing they genuinely respect. Not performed enthusiasm. Actual intellectual engagement. Like the work existed as its own thing worth discussing. Not as a measure of what kind of car I could afford. I noticed the difference. You can't not notice a thing like that once you've been starved of it. The call came on a Thursday evening. Exactly 2 weeks after the night in the kitchen. I was at my desk in the apartment office, headphones around my neck, reviewing architecture diagrams for a presentation the next morning. The phone buzzed. Brooke. I looked at her name for a few seconds. Then I picked up. Hey, I said. She was crying. Not the polished kind of crying someone does when they want to look sympathetic. The real kind. Rough and uneven, like something had come loose inside her. I need to talk to you, she said. Okay, I said. Can I come over? I paused. You don't know where I live? I said. I found the address, she said. Cassidy helped me look you up. I thought about that for a moment. Okay, I said. She arrived 40 minutes later. I buzzed her up. She knocked. I opened the door, and I watched her face do something complicated. Her eyes moved past me and into the apartment. The high ceilings. The big windows with the city spread out behind them like something from a movie. The bookshelves. The professional setup in the second bedroom that was visible through the open door. She stood in the hallway and for a moment said nothing. You can come in, I said. She stepped inside slowly, like she was walking into a room she hadn't expected and needed a moment to understand. She looked at everything with this expression I hadn't seen on her face before. Not exactly sadness. Not quite shock. Something in between. Like watching a calculation happen in real time. How long have you had this place? She asked. 2 weeks, I said. You moved here the night The morning after, I said. She nodded slowly. I gestured toward the couch. She sat. I stayed standing for a moment, then sat across from her. She looked like she hadn't been sleeping well. There was a tiredness around her eyes that her makeup hadn't entirely covered. I made a mistake, she said. I waited. I've been miserable since you left, she said. Since you asked me to leave, I said. Gently. Not cruelly. Just accurately. She flinched slightly. I've been thinking, she said. About everything I said. About the way I've been treating you. Okay, I said. I wasn't fair to you, she said. No, I said. You weren't. I think I got caught up in this idea of what my life was supposed to look like, she said. Who I was supposed to be with. What box everything needed to fit in. I listened. And you were there, she continued. Being so steady, so constant. And I mistook it. I thought steady meant stuck. I thought constant meant going nowhere. I know, I said. She looked up at me. Did you know? Back then, I knew you saw me that way, I said. I didn't know how to change your mind about it. You didn't try, she said. No, I said. I didn't. She was quiet for a moment. You could have told me, she said. About what you were building. About the deal. About any of this. She gestured at the apartment. I could have, I said. Why didn't you? I thought about how to answer that. Because if the only way to matter to you was to impress you, I said, then mattering to you wasn't something I wanted. She stared at me. The words landed the way I knew they would. Not like a weapon, just like a truth that had been waiting a long time for its moment. That's not fair, she said quietly. It's completely fair, I said. And you know it. She started to cry again. This time it was different. Not the rough, panicked crying from the phone call. This was something more worn down, more honest. I heard about the acquisition, she said. I kept my expression even. From Cassidy's boyfriend. He works in the same building as your firm. Small city, I said. Why didn't you tell me you'd been working on something like that? We weren't really talking about my work, I said. Not for a long time. She wiped at her eyes. I know, she said. Do you? I said. Not harsh. Just asking. She looked down at her hands. I stopped listening, she said. Didn't I? Yeah, I said. You did. The apartment was very quiet. Outside the big windows, the city moved the way cities do. Lights and traffic and the distant sound of someone living their life at full volume. I know this sounds like too little, too late, she said. It does, I said. But I love you, she said. The words sat in the air between us. I looked at her for a long moment. At the face I had loved clearly and without reservation for 3 years. At the eyes that had once looked at me like I was exactly enough. I know you do, I said. Then, that doesn't fix it, I said. She pressed her lips together. Love isn't the issue, I said. It never really was. Then what's the issue? The issue is that for the last year, you've been ashamed of me, I said. At dinner parties, in conversations, in the way you talked about my work. And you were looking for someone else to want even while I was standing right in front of you. She didn't deny it. That, more than anything, told me everything. I didn't sleep with Theron, she said. I know, I said. How do you know? Because it doesn't matter, I said. The wanting to is the same problem. She let out a long, unsteady breath. I've been calling him less, she said. Since you left. Good, I said simply. She looked around the apartment again. At the bookshelves, at the coastline photo, at the second bedroom with the lights still on and the diagrams spread across the desk. You look happy, she said quietly. I am, I said. She said it like it hurt her. And I think it did. Not because she wanted me to be miserable, but because happy meant I didn't need her. And not needing her, I think, was something she hadn't truly believed was possible until she was sitting in my living room looking at the evidence. Is there someone else? She asked. I thought about Ren. The late coffees. The conversations about things that actually mattered. The way she had laughed at something I said 2 days ago, and I'd carried that sound home with me without meaning to. Not the way you mean, I said. Brooke heard something in that answer. She was always good at hearing the thing underneath the thing. But there could be, she said. Maybe, I said. She nodded once. Very slowly. Like something was clicking into place inside her that was going to take a while to process. Did you ever think about telling me? She asked. After the acquisition. After all of this. Did you consider it, even for a second, just to prove something to you? I said. She was quiet. No, I said. I didn't want to prove anything to you. I still don't. Why are you letting me sit here then? She asked. Because you're not a bad person, I said. You just wanted the wrong things for the wrong reasons, and it cost you something real. She looked at me. That's all. And because I think you needed to see this, I said. Not to hurt you. Just because sometimes you need to see a thing to actually believe it. She swallowed. I believed you were going nowhere, she said. I know. I was wrong. I know. She stayed quiet for a long moment after that. And I didn't rush her. I never did. That, I think, was something she was only now beginning to understand the value of. She left an hour later. I walked her to the door. She stood in the hallway and looked at me with those tired, honest eyes. I'm sorry, she said. I know you are, I said. Does it count for anything? I considered that. It counts, I said. It just doesn't change anything. She nodded. She started to say something else, then stopped. Take care of yourself, I said. She walked to the elevator. I watched her go. I stood in the doorway until the elevator doors closed. Then I turned back into the apartment. Into the high ceilings and the big windows and the quiet that was mine. Into the diagrams on the desk and the morning that was waiting somewhere on the other side of the night. Into the life I had been building in silence while someone decided I wasn't worth watching. I want to tell you something about that season of my life. Not to deliver a lesson. Not to point at anything with a knowing nod. Just because it's honest. There is a particular kind of loneliness that comes from being underestimated by someone who loves you. It's worse than the loneliness of being unknown. Because being unknown can be fixed by being seen. But being underestimated by someone who already has access to all of you? That's a different animal entirely. You can't reason your way out of it. You can't show up harder and fix it. Because they've already looked at you and made their calculation. And the calculation just doesn't include everything you are. I had been living inside that loneliness for the better part of a year, moving through it quietly, building through it, not to prove her wrong, at least, not consciously. But I would be lying if I said there wasn't something in me that needed to know, needed to look at my own reflection without her lens over it, needed to find out what I was made of when nobody was watching and nobody was going to applaud. The acquisition didn't make me enough. I was already enough. The acquisition just made it easier to see. The Thursday after Brooke's visit, I stayed late at the office again. Ren was still there too. We ended up at the coffee machine at the same time. She was talking about a problem in the product architecture, walking through it the way she always did, hands moving, ideas coming fast. And I offered a solution I had been turning over in my head for 2 days. She stopped, looked at me, and then she grinned. That laugh that rearranges the room. "How long have you been sitting on that?" she asked. "Long enough to be sure it was right," I said. She shook her head, still smiling. "You're infuriating," she said. "I've been told," I said. We stayed there by the coffee machine for another 40 minutes, talking through the problem, then talking about something else entirely, then just standing there because neither of us had moved toward leaving yet, and it was raining outside and the office was warm and quiet, and neither of those things seemed like a reason to go. I noticed, without making a thing of it, that I wasn't performing anything, wasn't shrinking or puffing up or measuring her reaction. I was just there, present, whole, and she was talking to me like she could see all of it, like none of it needed explaining or defending or apologizing for, like I was, without any amendment or qualification needed, exactly enough. I'm not going to wrap this up with a bow. Life doesn't work that way. Brooke and I are not in contact, not because of bitterness, just because there's nothing left to say that needs saying. She moved on. I assume she's okay. I genuinely hope so. Not performatively, actually, because she was a real person who made a real mistake, and real mistakes are different from evil ones. The firm has been everything I needed it to be. The work is hard and honest, and the kind of thing that makes you better just by doing it. The apartment is mine in every way that matters. And Ren, I'm taking that slowly. The way you take something that actually has the potential to be good. Careful with it. Present with it. Not rushing it toward a definition. Just letting it be what it is, and paying attention. But here's the thing I keep coming back to when I think about that night in the kitchen, when she said I wasn't enough. When I smiled and said nothing. I didn't smile because I knew what was coming. I didn't smile because I had a plan. I smiled because somewhere under everything, I already knew she was wrong. I had known it for months. I had just been waiting for myself to believe it loud enough to act on. The acquisition, the apartment, the firm, the work, Ren, all of that came after. That was the world catching up to something that was already true. I was already enough. I had always been enough. I had just been trying to be enough for someone who had already decided I wasn't. And there is no version of that story that has a good ending. Not because of who you are, because of who they've already decided you are. And the only move left, in that situation, the only honest and dignified move, is the one I made. Walk away. Not in anger. Not in performance. Just walk away. Quietly. With your boxes, and your duffel bag, and your coffee grinder that's too loud. Into the apartment with the big windows. Into the work you've been building in the dark. Into the version of yourself that was always there, waiting on the other side of someone else's smallness. She called once more, about a week after the visit. I didn't pick up. She didn't leave a voicemail. I thought about calling back for about 3 seconds. Then I looked at the diagrams on my desk, and I went back to work. Clifford told me something during my first week at the firm. We were walking to his car after a long day. He said, "The best builders I've known all have one thing in common." I asked him what. He said, "They all had a long period where nobody believed in them, and they built anyway." I thought about that for a long time after. About the late nights with the cold coffee while Brooke slept. About the months of quiet work that nobody was watching. About every dinner party where I sat at a table full of people who made me feel like a rough draft. And I kept building anyway. Not to prove anything. Not to arrive anywhere. Just because the work was real. Because the thing I was making was real. Because I was real, whether anyone in that room could see it or not. The coastline photo is on the wall above my desk now. I bought it on a trip I took alone, 2 years before I met Brooke. It's a stretch of rocky shoreline somewhere on the northern coast, the sea all gray and silver, the light coming in at a low angle the way it does at the end of the day. I bought it because it made me feel something I didn't have a word for. A kind of peace that isn't passive. The kind that comes from being a small thing in a large and indifferent world and deciding that's okay. Deciding you're still going to be here tomorrow. Still going to do the work. Still going to get up and look out at the sea and feel whatever it is you feel. I stare at it sometimes when I'm stuck. When the architecture doesn't want to cooperate and the solution won't come and the coffee has gone cold again. And it reminds me of the same thing it always reminded me of. You are not in a hurry. You are not behind. You are not a rough draft. You are a person who does the work. And the work is enough. Because you are enough. You always were. The morning after Brooke's visit, I woke up before my alarm. Light was coming through the big windows at that particular angle it gets just after sunrise, pale and honest, and without commentary. I made coffee. Loud coffee grinder. Didn't care. I stood by the window with my mug and looked at the city. And I noticed that I was smiling. The same smile from the kitchen. Quiet. Still. Not triumphant. Not sad. Just there. Present. Whole. The smile of someone who knows exactly where they stand. The smile of someone who was always going somewhere. Who just didn't bother explaining the destination to someone who had already decided it wasn't worth visiting. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. Sometimes the most complete answer to someone telling you that you're not enough is to simply turn and begin. Not to prove them wrong. To prove yourself right. There's one more thing. The last piece. The part that still lives in me. Somewhere past the clarity and the new apartment and the good work and the late evenings with Rin and the sound of her laugh that catches in the room and doesn't want to leave. I loved Brooke. I want to be clear about that. Not as a footnote. Not as a caveat. I loved her for real. In the way that gets into your habits. In the way that makes you know someone's tea preference and the exact way they fall asleep and the specific half smile they make when they're reading something they're not going to admit they enjoy. That love was real. That love deserved better than what it got. And when she sat on my couch with tired eyes and said I love you in that small, worn-down voice, I believed her. I just also knew it wasn't enough. Not because love isn't important. It's the most important. But because love that diminishes you is not love doing its job. Love is supposed to make more room, not less. Love is supposed to look at you and say, I see all of you, and I want to stay. Not I see all of you, and I'm hoping you'll become something different. What Brooke and I had at the end wasn't love that made more room. It was love that kept looking at the door. And I deserved someone whose love looked at me. I think I've always known that. I think it just took a kitchen table and a flat, certain voice and 4 boxes and a duffel bag to finally act on it. I'm okay now. Actually okay. Not the kind of okay you say to get through the next hour. The real kind. The kind that has weight to it. The kind you earn by doing something hard quietly and alone and not asking anyone to applaud it. I'm sitting by the big window as I'm telling you this. Coffee on the desk. Coastline photo on the wall. City outside doing what cities do. And somewhere in the building down the road, Ren is probably still at her desk, working through something with that focused, present energy she has, the kind that doesn't need an audience. I'm going to text her in a few minutes. Ask if she wants coffee. And she'll say yes, or she'll say she's almost done, and we'll end up by the machine talking about something real. And that will be enough. That will be more than enough. That will be everything. The smile I gave Brooke in the kitchen that night, I understand it now in a way I didn't fully at the time. It wasn't about knowing what was coming. It wasn't about revenge or strategy or any of that. It was the smile of someone who had just been handed their own freedom without realizing it. The smile of someone who heard you're not enough and thought, for the first time in a long time, very clearly, then I'll go be enough somewhere else. And walked. That's the whole story. That's all of it.